viewers, welcome back to Sunrise here on Tobago Updates Television. Thank you so much for staying with us. As promised, we're going to have a conversation with Captain Gary Griffith, a former Minister of National Security and former police commissioner, as we talk about the perceived extrajudicial killing that was seen in that viral video now on social media. Before we get into the conversation, we're going to take a look at the video. All right, so joining me this morning is Captain Gary Griffith. Captain Griffith, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here on Sunrise, as always. So right before you came on here, we had that very chilling video that is now causing quite an uproar in Trinidad and Tobago. My first question to you, sir, is when it comes to the use of force, is it a framework that the police officers are guided by? Some persons are saying, based on Commissioner of Police Alistair Guevara remarks, which was about 2 hours after the incident, he said it was a police-involved shootout with the suspects of the vehicle. Some persons are saying, from looking at the video, you're seeing that the gentleman would have had his arms outside of the vehicle as a sign of surrender. And some persons are saying, well, possibly there was a shootout before we saw this video, and so the police officers were justified in their actions. What are your remarks on that, sir?
Hi, good morning. It is very unfortunate. I mean, the comments I have made, I have been bombarded by thousands of persons. The vast majority have actually been attacking me because of their disenchantment, lack of trust, lack of belief in the police service. But I can't. I mean, me being someone in law enforcement for decades, I can't turn my back and attack the police service. So maybe I have been biased, but I can't go ahead and demonize the police service. But this situation, it is definitely going to put a dent in the public trust and confidence in the police service. But incidents do happen, as unfortunate as it is, but there must be consequences. What you do not want is, after an incident like this, to hear the Commissioner of Police make a statement where people could, Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could see that what he said there is in contrast to what actually happened at first glance. He may have received that information, so he automatically said it, and that's where it is. This is the unfortunate situation. Again, this man was appointed as a commissioner of police, but he was middle management. He never held any senior position in the police service. He was never outside onto the streets. He spent most of his time in special branch. So he would make these mistakes. The comment should have been, the initial reports that I have received stated that there was a shootout between the police and suspects. But for him to make that statement, it can be perceived that they're trying to cover up, because you can't see someone putting his hands in the air, surrendering, and you're saying that there was a shootout. Now, everybody is a security expert in this country. Everybody has a comment to make, because that is where I'm hearing so many comments. It is unbelievable. It is mind-boggling. First, there's a government official who has been sending a video around the country, and he sent it to certain people to send it out and spread. And it is stating that sometimes in these situations, when it is that the police are in hot pursuit, you must not do that, because you can cause the police to be nervous and it can cause problems. Total stupidity. I condemn that government official for sending those videos. And then he said that when you put your hands in the air in a crash, there could be dust, and the dust could cause the police officers to second guess. Total lies, total nonsense. That individual, who may have been even involved in law enforcement, obviously was never trained in law enforcement properly. Going back to the comments made by people, if it is, now there could have been a possibility, there could have been a shootout between that individual and the police before the car crash. That does not in any way give the police authorization to be able to shoot at individuals. So let me give you an example. If police shoot at police officers, they drop their firearms and they start running. It gives the police no authorization to fire. There's a minimum use of force policy. The minimum use of force specifically states that you have enough grounds to have equal response to neutralize the person. If at any time that person is neutralized, you cannot continue to fire. And even when you looked, there was at least a 10-second lull, and two of the idiots continued to still fire, and you could see that the two individuals were neutralized, whether it was dead or injured. And the fool started saying, don't move. And the other guy realized, okay, we have gone too far, and you're telling him to hold it down. This is bad training, and this is why it is my concern about this is that with this situation with the zone of special operations, there's a trigger now that is causing many persons to be very wary that this ZOSO is going to cause police officers to do this. I have someone very close to me, a very close relative. Police officers put a gun to his head 2 years ago, and he is still in Maracas police station on patrol. It's only in a banana republic that police officer immediately should have been suspended or not be on active duty. But this is what happens. These officers, and again, I'm not saying that these things could never happen. I had a similar situation as Commissioner of Police. Immediately as it happened, all 17 officers were suspended. And then later on, a few weeks later, when we got the video footage, we realized it was just 4 or 5 of them involved in the shootings. That is what should have been done. The commissioner should have said immediately, all the officers involved in this have been suspended and their weapons taken from them, or they put on desk duty. That's the least that could happen until the investigation is complete. No, instead he says it was a shootout between the police and the individuals. So to summarize, there's no justification, and I'm not going to cast any aspersions and give judgment on a situation that's presently being still investigated. But at first glance, watching this, I want to reconfirm to the citizens whether persons were escaping from the police and crash, because you're seeing foolish comments. Well, why were they running? It doesn't matter. If you can be in hot pursuit, you crash your vehicle, it gives the police no authorization to shoot at you. If it is that you shot at the police before and then you crash, it gives the police no authorization or approval to fire at you. The only time they can do that is if someone points a gun at them, if they believe it was a firearm, or if the weapon was actually fired. If someone surrenders and you continue to shoot, that is not minimum use of force policy. That is murder.
So I want to speak to the investigations thereafter, because we see that the PCA would have said that in 2025 there was about 55 fatal police shootings, and in 37 in 2024 and 39 in 2023. Only 5 from 2023 have been closed, all the others are open. Even if we take a look back in 2022, where we had that officer in Rich Plain that was shot, and it later confirmed that he was not shot by the civilian that they were in pursuit of, but he was actually shot by one of his fellow officers. And I recall, and even the public, I'm pretty sure we recall, that there was a manhunt out looking for the perceived suspect. And until it was the autopsy proved that he was shot by one of his very own officers. My question is to you, do you believe, and seeing that public trust in police force is at 8% now, 8% out of 100%, I just want to put that out there. Is it that citizens should be scared to engage with the police service?
I will say that they should be very concerned. But my point again is that there are 7,000 odd police officers. 6,500 of them were the same police officers just 4 years ago, when public trust in the police service was 59%. So when people say, well, that is not the point. It's not a difference in leadership or policies. It has to do with the individuals being properly trained. Police officers come from society. They are, but they are expected to be at a higher standard. Having said that, we are trained not to steal, not to rape, not to kill, but persons do it if there's not a deterrent. In 5 years ago, these same police officers, this would not happen because we had body cameras that I made just months before I departed office. It was a mandatory standard operational procedure. Body cameras must be worn. And this present commissioner has refused to enforce that body camera implementation. He and the media is not asking him why. Because the lies that they're saying, well, we need to make sure there's 7,000 for all officers. That is a cop-out, literally. Because you don't have more than about 800 police officers on operational duty at any one time. So the reason why we got 1,200 initially, it took me 2 or 3 years to get the funding for it, because for decades, no police commissioner before me ever thought about that, because they were old-time police officers. I knew the importance of building public trust and confidence. So I got tasers, I got pepper spray, I got body cameras. We got GPS tracking on the police vehicles. We got live cameras on the vehicle. So even if it is that the police officer didn't have the body camera, the live video on the top of the vehicle would be seen back to an operational command center. We had a police app. We had online reporting. We had situations you could contact the commissioner personally. All of these things cause every police officer out on the street to realize, if I do a roadblock and I decide to flirt with a girl or disrespect her, or that person could call Gary and I could be up at the office. Every morning I'll have 5 or 10 officers lined up, and I will speak to them, I will discipline them, I will advise them. And that changed the transformation of the police service. There was accountability. Their performance was being measured. They knew that anytime they were in a roadblock, you disrespect someone, immediately you could be at the commissioner's office. That has now changed. It has gone back to police officers realizing I could point a gun to your head, I could do what I want. And again, every month I met with the police complaint authority. I give them authority, I give them teeth. The PCA doesn't have that anymore. It has gone back to the old-time police officers. I don't care about the PCA. You all are problems to society. The PCA, all they could do is give recommendations. The police is the law unto themselves. And unless you have a commissioner that is ready to do what I did, all 17 were immediately suspended. That is what the commissioner should do this morning. To build back public trust and confidence, all of them should be suspended with immediate effect. But no, police, this thing of police covering for police, I was never into that. Whilst at the same time, I want the public to understand that in my period, we had gang members shooting at police officers. And when I see stupid comments by persons who obviously, I have a 6-year-old nephew that can educate them. If it is that you shoot at a police officer, I had police officers' lives being saved with their bulletproof vests, rounds hitting their chest. I had police vehicles like a strainer littered with shots, and the police would return fire. And I told them, do not come with this shooting a leg and an arm. One shot, one kill. You shoot at a police officer, you try to kill a police officer, it is your right to go for the head or chest. Take them out. Neutralize them before they shoot at you. That has nothing to do with a situation if someone is retreating, if a vehicle is fleeing from the police, if it is your hands in the air. You cannot justify shooting at citizens. And if what is based on the initial video content, immediately the commissioner of police should apologize for his initial comment. 2, the commissioner should have all these officers suspended. They should not be carrying firearms. And 3, the police service, commission should start doing a proper analysis to measure the performance of commissioners and deputy commissioners. They stay silent, they do nothing, which goes back to my biggest problem in this constitution. The prime minister handpicks a president who handpicks a commissioner, police service commission. Because as I always go back, Ulla Christopher, when she was appointed, she didn't come in the top 20 by international experts. As soon as we put a police service commission to judge, who was handpicked by a president, who was handpicked by a prime minister, she placed first, and she was imposed on us. So the only way we could get good commissioners is to take away politically appointed persons to appoint commissioners, and to make sure that they can properly keep them in check. This situation, the police service commissioner will stay silent, the commissioner of police will stay silent, and everybody will stay silent and hope that this matter goes away. And now we have 2 more notches on the guns of police officers that could be seen as extrajudicial killing.
So I want you to clarify something when it comes to the use of force policy, because sometimes you would hear random citizens, just a regular man on the street, when police is involved in any altercation with a citizen, and they usually would say, well, you could have wound him, they could have shoot his leg, or they could have shoot his arm, or they could have shoot. Is it that once a police officer draws a firearm that it escalates at that point? Is it that, because clarify for me, the firearm is your last resort because therefore your life is in danger. And if I pull a firearm as a police officer, is it that is a shoot to kill point, or is it there's room for a shoot to wound point?
No, when you draw a firearm, there's a saying you cannot be half pregnant. Your job is now to neutralize the person. And that's why when I spoke about one shot, one kill, you try to shoot. If someone is shooting at you as a police officer and you aim at someone's leg or arm, you have now minimized the target, which means that you can actually miss. It allows that person to shoot again. Secondly, even if you hit that part of the body, it can still cause the person to have the ability to still fire at you, which is why targets in the police service in training is a head and chest. And that's why police officers were very skeptical when I was commissioner, because the gang members, that's when, remember, crime was over 500 murders. They were taking control of areas. And I had to give the confidence to police officers. If they shoot at you, you now have to use that extreme force, which is a firearm, to protect yourself. And to protect yourself, you need to neutralize the enemy. And to neutralize that person is a head or a chest, which is why I spoke about one shot, one kill. That persons who were criminals or sympathetic to criminals had a problem with. That is the only way that you can ensure that your life could be saved or that of citizens. But it goes back to my point. Before I was commissioner of police, all the commissioners before, there was never a minimum use of force policy. So if a man had a big stick and was chasing a police officer or a vagrant, the police officer has nothing else and he will use his firearm to say, well, I had no other choice. That is why I used verbal persuasion. That is why I started giving police officers with a radio so they could have communication to have immediate backup, because numerical superiority can cause a situation to de-escalate. From then, I issued tasers. I issued pepper spray. So as the situation escalates, the police can move from verbal persuasion to the radio for backup to then using pepper spray or to use a taser. And then the firearm is the final use of force. That's why I changed the uniform. I got the belt so that they could put the tasers, the firearm, the pepper spray, the radio, and so forth. All of that was removed by McDonald, Jacob, Euler, Christopher, and Guevara. They have refused to re-implement it. So all of the things I spoke about for minimum use of force policy, the radios, the tasers, the pepper spray, and so forth. And now the police officers have gone back to their one thing, which is the firearm, and they have refused to utilize the body cameras that I also put as a standard operational procedure. It is a standing order. Any police officer who does not turn on his body camera when going on a patrol can and should be suspended immediately. The media is not asking Guevara, why are you not implementing it? Because again, I want to come back to the point. If he says they are not enough, that is a lie. We checked and we realized so what is supposed to happen is that you go on a patrol, a roadblock, an operation, a warrant issue, you sign for the body camera, you turn it on. When you finish, you return it. And then I had a unit that will check to verify if you had it turned on while you were on duty. Giving each person an issue and they're keeping it for themselves, it means that you will never know because you're not checking to see if it was used or not. That is my point. So they're not using any body cameras, they're not using any tasers, they're not using any pepper spray. No, online reporting is not available. The police app is not available. They removed the dashboard cameras. So it seems that they've done everything to go back to the old-time policing of just do what you want and hope that there will be no consequences. So again, I said there's an escalation in minimum use of force policy. And in that situation, because of the individual putting his hands in the air, there was no need to use pepper spray, no need to use tasers, and definitely on initial viewing, no need to have fired at that vehicle.
So thank you. But finally, before we go, I know your time is precious and you have other engagements. I want to ask, do you think, in your opinion, do you think that citizens should support the ZOSO bill, seeing as what has just recently happened with this police-involved killing?
Yeah, well, I have my pages and so forth. It gets about 500,000 hits, and the vast majority of people who are responding are now condemning ZOSO and saying that they don't trust the zone of special operations because of what has happened recently. And then we saw a recent report as well where someone actually just won in court against the state because the police foolishly decided to remove him whilst he was conducting a one-man protest, which was lawful. So the police acted unlawfully, and all of these things continue to invade the confidence that the public will have on the police service. My take on it is, if it was 59% a few years ago, it gets back to that, ZOSO can be of value. But for that to happen, we need a commissioner who understands the ground, who understands community policing, who understands use of force policy. And if that does not happen, it is going to affect the confidence the public will have of the police, and it is going to negatively have a view that ZOSO can be something where the police will abuse their authority even more. So I think it lies now on the commissioner of police to get his act together, because a lot of these police officers, it's getting out of hand. The way they're speaking to the public, they're trying to roadblock their way out of crime, they're targeting persons. It has to stop. And it can only happen if you put the checks and balances of the things we had before that caused public confidence in the police service to be 59%.
All right. Captain Griffith, I want to thank you so much for joining us and waking up for sunrise this morning. It's a pleasure having you on, sir, and we look forward to other conversations with you. All right, viewers, so that was Captain Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police and Minister of National Security, speaking on the perceived extrajudicial killing that we recently saw, that very chilling video circulating on social media. Of course, the Zones of Special Operations Bill was still awaiting 4 votes from independent senators, once those 4 votes are cast, once you have the support of those 4 independent senators, then that bill will be passed. And so following this perceived extrajudicial killing, persons are saying, give the police more powers. Would they abuse it? What would we look like here in Trinidad and Tobago? Of course, we're going to keep our eyes on this. We're going to listen out to hear what the Commissioner of Police has to say now, and even the Minister of Homeland Security and National Security. Now that this video has surfaced, I mean, persons are saying, what if that house wasn't in that position and had that camera in that position, that we could have seen this evidence? I mean, it's such a big picture. It's a big picture moment and not a small picture moment. I want to thank you so much for joining Sunrise. You know the programming here on Tobago Updates Television is not over.